When we were building our nursery school, we had a chance to make a building that put into stone and wood all the things that we hoped would be in a program for young children that would be a good one. So we started out thinking that the environment had a great deal to do with how learning took place. And we tried to get the architects to think of children as using a school where there were lots of things to do without having any failures in it, and always choosing fairly correctly and fairly successfully what they would do. We said we want it like a good highway that has you going forward always. Everything in front of you is something you may engage in, and that there are no signs that say, go back, you're going the wrong way. The teachers set a stage in this kind of an environment that opens up the world to children very much in the way what we call the English open school does, but actually, if we want to talk about that as being new, it was old to the people in progressive education. As someone who went all through the years of progressive education said, well, we went a lot farther than that and lost it because the world wasn't ready for it. And hopefully now, with the country doing it again and giving a new impetus to this, that maybe this time some of the good things of progressive education will hold on. We use principles in the nursery school of that we can manipulate the environment with, the principle of adding a stimulus, of subtracting a stimulus, or of grading it. And we think constantly in terms of children's learning by the way we watch this to see what kinds of things happen with them. I believe that in the Marie Hughes study in Tucson, they found this was a very good way to work with Indian and bilingual Mexican-American children. That the offerings are there, they're presented in logical ways, children can see what you do with them. The environment avoids having children get into difficulties through errors, and then recognizes their right to discover and explore and to match their perceptions against the experts or the authorities who are the adults there. We try not to have children get all their modeling from one adult. We made our groups larger so that we could have 4 teachers in one room for 32 children instead of a few children with one teacher, so that children generalize about many people rather than about a very few. The teachers do a great deal of setting the stage so that they aren't having to be ever-present authorities. They can keep down their authority and be protectors, facilitators, helpers, friends. And children use them this way. They approach teachers a great deal. They recognize that what teachers say is interesting and acceptable because it's usually loving and respecting of children. So the teachers' hands do nice things instead of harsh things. We use a great number of books, but they are available to children always. The story times are not great big story times where discipline is the important thing, but it can be for one child at a time, or 3 or 4, or whatever they can use at that time. We mix our age groups. We have children from 2.5 until they're 5 in the same group, so that children always have a chance to be the youngest and the oldest and the in-betweens. Little children have peer models that are much easier to imitate and learn from than adults are. And the older children look back and pace their growth and see how they learned. And they say things like, I couldn't do that last year either, but now I can, or I'll help you, or if you had a box that you stood on, you could reach it, and this kind of thing, so that awareness of growing and sympathy with growing is a part of it. We made the outdoors more important to children than the indoors so that they would be lured out there. We took an old hayfield that was flat, but it was large, and we're able to build for each of our 3 rooms. Each has a 1/2 acre landscaped play area. The ecologists would love us because when 90 children are present, we have 90 trees in the yard. There's one for everybody. The air is kept nice and clean. There are hills. When we asked for hills, as the architect said, dream, we dreamed and said we'd like nice grassy rolling hills, and they laughed, and I said, what are you laughing at? And they said, well, that means we don't have to haul away the dirt from the excavation, and they were delighted. We have animals, of course, that can be there, that can roam around. We also try to have odd-looking kinds of trees and bushes so that they'd ask about them, things like twisted willows and things with gnarled branches, all kinds of different shapes of things, like agapanthus, the Nile lily that looks like a big umbrella. We have lots of flowers. People will come and say, how can you have flowers around children? They'll just destroy them. But children don't destroy things they live with, and you rarely pick them, and that's what they're for. And they can gather them, and we try to always see that we have enough, that they can do this. And this is the kind of world that we hope they live in. We tried not to buy a whole lot of equipment that the toy stores have to offer. Sometimes people come and look at the equipment and say, oh, look at all that expensive equipment. And if we walk around and show them, some of this has been there since 1947 in the old schools. We brought it with us. But we repaint and repair, and we take 3 days off every quarter for putting things back in order. Teachers sand and paint and hammer and sew and wash and fix up so that the world is restored for children, and their old things are new things when they come back. The doors are always open. They can go in and out. There's an overhang that protects them from the sun if it's too hot in the summer, and they paint there and do woodwork, and it's a protection from the rain in the winter. The children like to go out in the rain. We don't have rain often enough some years, and one time when it was just simply teeming and some children got all dressed to go out, the teacher said, oh, we can't go out, it's raining, and this child said, when am I ever going to get to wear my raincoat? So the teacher decided she better wear hers and go too, that walking in the rain is a great experience and a great learning. And in fact, what I'm trying to say is that all of these things, it seems to me, are all things we've learned are good things for children to know, but we just don't learn them from books, and we just don't pursue them as a theory, but we try not to forget all of the good things that there are and keep those going. Now, in all of this, children are learning a great deal. They're learning to read. There are books in the running brooks and sermons in stones and, tongues in trees. And if you teach them to be very, very observant, they read. You don't have to tell them if somebody's feeling annoyed with you. They can look at a teacher's face and in a flicker of an eyelash they've seen. I guess I won't do that anymore. Or they're very quick to perceive what's going on. I think if you've allowed children to develop their powers of observation. Now, in all of this, of course, once in a while we have lots of difficulties that are settled. And then the next technique, besides modifying or changing the environment, is that the teacher uses language in control of behavior. We try to use positive, directing kinds of encouraging language, but point out to children what you could do rather than stop doing what you're doing, sort of thing, because that often is just a stopping technique and doesn't lead on to any more learning.